Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my podcast, Unwind and Knit with me. My name is Lisa, and I'm coming to you from Christchurch in New Zealand, and this is episode 34, and today is Tuesday, the 24th of January. So, to all my existing viewers, welcome back. Thank you for returning, and if you are a new viewer to my channel, welcome. And please subscribe if you like the content and share it. Thumbs up is always really good as well. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook as Unwind and Knit with me. And Unwind and Knit with me, we have a community Facebook group which is growing really nicely, and that's a space where you can share what you're doing and you can ask questions and just be part of the little community that is Unwind and Knit with me. Really special little community that I'm building, and I feel very privileged, and I just love being part of it. So this is my space where I talk about my knitting, my WIPs, my finished objects, patterns, yarn, and all of those good things that I'm extremely passionate about. So I know there's so many knitting podcasts out there now, so if you've chosen to share your time with me, thank you. I do hope you've got a cup of tea or coffee and you have your knitting, and you can kick back and enjoy this little podcast and just, share the next hour or so with me. I do have 2 finished objects, which is quite exciting. Last episode, it was a half-finished object, and that was my socks. So I now have 2 completely finished. So these are the DK Everyday Socks by Andrea and Mowry. This is the first time I've knitted this pattern, and I love it. I'm a real fan, and I think these will be my go-to socks. I have knitted quite a few socks that were always just really vanilla socks. I did the odd, cable colour work ones, but I got stuck in a bit of a rut there for a while where I was just knitting vanilla socks. And then I lost my mojo altogether, and I really didn't knit socks for about a year. And this is my first pair that I've knitted for quite a while. And I have to say they've re-sparked my passion for wanting to knit more socks. So I'm really happy that I got my sock mojo back. This pattern is a 2x2 rib. It's toe up. It's a Turkish cast on, which I had to follow Andrea's YouTube tutorial, and it did take me about 3 goes to actually get it right. I wasn't happy, so I ripped it out and started again, and ripped it out and started again. So if you haven't done the Turkish cast on for toe up socks, give it a go, and if it doesn't work the first time, don't be disappointed, you'll get there. So did I say it's a 2x2 rib? But what I really like is this heel construction, the heel flap and the gusset, and you can see it there, and it just fits really snug, and there's no sort of sagging or falling down, and I think it's a 2x2 rib that just gives it a really nice snug fit. So that's what I really like about these. This is a sock yarn that was gifted to me. It was a present from a friend, and it come from Prague in, I think it's the Croatia Republic. But it was a hand-dyed sock yarn from overseas, and it was a gift. So I'm really happy to finally have those 2 finished. It is a pattern that I'd highly recommend for everyday socks. I love the fact that it's really size inclusive. So this pattern, Andrea has written the sizes from, I think it's a 6-month-old baby, right through to like extra large men's size. And I think that's really clever, because most sock patterns that I've knitted don't, they may have just a small or a medium or a men's and a women's, but this is really size inclusive, so you can, if you've got a broader foot or a narrow foot, you can really tailor it to fit. So my first finished objects for 2023. They were started last year, but actually I only started those on Christmas Eve. So not too bad. Yeah, I knocked those out pretty quickly actually. The other finished object is what I'm wearing, and I'm really excited about this, to have this finished. So this is the Winter Beach Cardi, again by Andrea and Mowry. I've been a little bit of a fan of Andrea. I go through phases where I'll, for a whole year, knit a whole lot of Caitlin Hunter, Hohilo Catali, or, you know, I just sometimes just gravitate to a designer and I just run with it for a little while. I'm sure most of you knitters will know what that's like. So there is a bit of a theme going here with Andrea and Mowry. But this is the Winter Beach Cardi, and I'm going to just stand up and give you a wee little glimpse. So just turn around there. This has turned out perfect. I'm really, really happy with it. I wanted a cardigan that I could wear just over a t-shirt with jeans, or with a skirt, or, you know, with like a maxi dress. And I have to say, it's perfect, and I just love it. So I cast on this cardigan, I think it was about August last year, and I got a good portion of the back and the sides done. And then for some reason, my attention must have been diverted somewhere else on other projects. It ended up in the naughty corner, and I don't know why I didn't just keep going with it, because I really wanted to finish it. Part of it may be because it's the second one I've knitted, and it's really funny because I was looking at an old episode, actually episode 12, and I talked about the first one I had done. And I actually said, oh, would I do it again? Yeah, I would, but probably not anytime soon. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I'm casting on a new one. So it is the second one I've knitted. Completely different yarn. It's a different fit. It's a different feel. So I will talk about it a little bit. So that's it there. Winter Beach Cardi by Andrea and Mowry. And I have quite a few notes. Actually, I'm just going to skip backwards a minute. I didn't show you, that's the DKR Everyday Sock Pattern. In case you are wondering, a paid for pattern on Ravelry. And I highly recommend it. I must say too, there may be a bit of stopping and starting going on here. I'm expecting a tiler to turn up. We're having some work done on our entrance hall. So yeah, I'll see how we go, but there may be a few stops and starts. So Winter Beach Cardi by Andrea and Mowry. I did, like I said, I started it, I think it was about July or August last year, and I finished it 2 days ago. So it's I blocked it, and we had a beautiful warm sunny day here, and it dried, so it's freshly blocked. What I will say, you can see there's a bit of some creases there, but I know that this yarn is going to soften, and as I wear it, it's just going to, like a good old pair of jeans, it's just going to mold. It's just such a beautiful yarn. So the yarn I used is Appledore DK, and that comes from John Arbon Textiles in the UK. It's 40% Devon Closewood, 40% Romney, 20% Exmoor, and it's 250 meters per 100 gram. And the colour I've used, which I'm so in love with, is called Quench. And I'm just going to pop it up there. You see all the play with colour there? There's pinks and blues and yellows. And John Arbon Textiles do that so well in so many of their yarns. But the colour I've used is Quench. I do stock the whole range of this in on my website, on my online store, which is unwindanddknit.com. So that's it there. That's the yarn I used. What I will say, so the previous one that I knitted was in 100% merino, and it's softer, and the merino just sort of blooms, and it's sort of a bit more drapey, and it's just like a big hug, really. It's yeah, I'm sure you've seen it if you follow my podcast. This yarn is completely different. The stitch definition is a lot more crisp. You can see there. And I'd say it feels a little bit more crisp, but in saying that, it feels really warm, and I'm probably going to have to take it off before the end of this podcast. But it's not scratchy on me. Is it scratchy? Oh, if you're super sensitive, you may find it a little bit itchy, but I don't find it scratchy at all. And like I said, with this yarn, I know that the more I wear it, the more it's just going to mold into my shape, and it's just going to be beautiful. I am so, so happy. So what I will say, I did the size 3, and I did it exactly to the pattern, the exact measurements, the exact length as what was in the pattern. And I used 5 skeins, and towards the end I was seriously playing yarn chicken, because that's all I have left out of 5 skeins. I was doing the lining for the pockets. It has hidden pockets, which I'll talk about. And I actually, that's what I did last. And I seriously thought one of the pockets was going to be quite a lot shorter, which would have been okay because it's hidden, and they're the sort of pockets that I think are more for show than, you know, maybe I'd put a handkerchief or something in there, but, you know. But I thought I was going to run out of yarn while I was doing the pocket, but I managed with the tiniest little bit to spare. So 5 skeins is what it took. I knitted it on a 4mm needle, and sorry, the ribbon was 4mm and the body was all done in a 5mm. So it does knit up quite quickly. It's knitted in the flat, but every stitch is either cable or double moss. The only stockinette stitch is this little bit here on the sleeve from there to there. All the rest is ribbing, cabled, and double moss. So you do kind of have to concentrate, and you have a lot of stitch markers to separate all the panels. Although the pattern is really easy to read. Although I did make a few mistakes, I did say you probably should put a couple of lifelines in with this pattern, because I did have to rip it back where I was knit, and then I realised one of my cables was the wrong way. But what I will say with this yarn is it does unravel really nicely, and the stitches don't run away on you, and you can actually just pick the stitches up really easy if you do have to rip it back at all. But I would recommend a couple of lifelines. Yes, lifelines, bottom up, I said that. And then when you get to this point, you divide for the left front and the right front, and then the back, and then it's a 3-needle bind off, which is really quite an Andrea thing. She does quite a few of her garments with the 3-needle bind off up here. 3-needle binds off. And yeah, the hidden pockets, I was going to talk about those, and I will just stand up and show you the WIP pockets. There they are there. And there's the lining, which is stitching. You can see where I've stitched that in there. And they're a wee little pocket. So I did have somebody ask me in the comments that they would really like to do this, but they were a little bit nervous about the hidden pockets. And what I've got to say is, don't be nervous. I have heard some people say, I've knitted it, but I just didn't do the pockets. I really recommend that you do the pockets. Now, if you've ever done a sock with an afterthought heel, it's exactly the same technique. It's actually called an afterthought pocket. And here comes my Tyler. I knew I was going to have to stop and interrupt. I'm going to stop and I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about this afterthought pocket. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about the afterthought pocket or the hidden pocket, and it's the same if you've ever done an afterthought heel. So Andrea's directions are really clear and the tutorial is really clear, but what you do is you use two different colors of thread, and I used red for the lifeline. So you put in a lifeline on your 41 stitches and then you knit, I used black, you knit a row, and that is your waste yarn, and then you do another, you thread the other 41 stitches, you put a lifeline in. So when you go back to it, you just remove that waste yarn, and then you've got your 2 rows of stitches that are on lifelines, and you knit one of them up for the little top of the pocket, and then you knit the other one down in stockinette stitch, which is the lining of the pocket. So I hope that makes sense. But what I will say is that the tutorials and the instructions are really quite clear. So don't be intimidated by the pocket. And like I said, as long as you're comfortable with double moss stitch and cable in, it's a beautiful piece. I really think I'm going to get a lot of wear out of this, and I'm already in my mind wanting to do one in another colour, in a darker colour. I did toy with the idea for a little bit about doing the lining of the pocket in another colour, so there's sort of like a little bit of a pop of colour. I have seen other cardigans where they do that just in the lining, so every now and then you just get that little glimpse of a pop of colour. And I thought about it through the whole process of knitting this cardigan. I had some yarn from my stash, different colours that I was toying with, that I was going to use, and at the end I just thought, it doesn't need a pop of colour. There is so much going on in this cardigan with the cable and the moss. Just leave it. Just don't overthink it or overcomplicate it, Lisa. Just leave it. And I'm so glad that I did. But that is an option that it's a thought that I played with for a while, was to do a different colour for the lining. And the other thing I did was the cast off. So on the sleeves, there's 8 inches here of 2x2 ribbing for the cuff of the sleeve. And I did a different bind off. You can't really see it. So I actually saw this bind off on Instagram, believe it or not, at about the same time that I was due to bind off one of my sleeves. And I thought, oh, that was really interesting. And what it was, it's called a knit 2 through the back loop cast off. And that's basically all you did, is you knit 1 and then you put that back onto the left needle, knit 2 through the back of the loop and repeat. So knit 1, put it back, knit 2 through the back, repeat. If you do want to try this cast off, it's actually a really nice, neat, stretchy cast off, and I actually used it on my DKR socks as well, because it's a really stretchy bind off. But if you want to YouTube that technique, it's knit 2 through the back of the loop cast off is basically what it's called. I will leave the link below in my description for that cast off. And I didn't mention that at the beginning, but anything I talk about, patterns and yarn, and any tutorials, I always leave the links in the description box below, so you can go in and have a look at that. But it's a really nice cast off. I did have a note to mention it, but it's nice and stretchy. Can you see it there? It's a really neat cast off. But I would really recommend it for socks because it's quite stretchy. But it is the cast off that I used on my sleeve because I knew that it was a big fold down. I didn't want it tight. So that's what I did there. And I think that's all my notes on my Winter Beach Cardi. Super, super thrilled. We are here in New Zealand, we're in summer. So I know that this is going to get a lot of wear transitioning into our winter. I really think that this is going to be a wardrobe piece that I'm really going to get a lot of wear out of. So that's my, I've only got two FOs, was my socks and this. So super, super thrilled. I will just, I've talked about this before, but at the beginning of every year, I start a new knitting journal, and I do get asked about it. So I just thought I'd quickly tell you what I use for my knitting journal is actually, I love a spiral edge. I use a sketch pad, and you can buy these in all stationery shops. And the reason I use sketch pads is because the paper's really thick, and I like to staple on my ball bands, and I also like to staple on a little swatch of the yarn that I used. And the thickness of this paper allows me to do that beautifully. And I use a lot of colour because I just think it's pretty. And so I've got 3 new cast-ons since the beginning of this year. So I've got my 3 little tabs there. And on my journal, I write the name of the pattern, where I got the pattern from, the designer, of course. I write the date that I started, and then I leave a space for the date that I finish it. I record the size I'm doing, the needles that I'm using, the yarn that I'm using, the colorways, anything of relevance to do with the beginning of the pattern. I record all of that before I actually start knitting. So so I just have a record of everything. There's banging going on at my front door. I hope you can't hear it. So yeah, that's my new knitting journal for 2023. And the other thing I thought I'd mention quickly is I showed you these in my last podcast. I got the new Chalgoo needle set for Christmas, and I thought I'd just give you a wee little review on what I think about it, because I haven't knitted a garment in it yet. I've only used it for swatching. And I have to say that they actually took me a little bit to get used to. So if you're a Chalgoo user, you'll know that the cables and the needles are just beautifully seamless. That they're just the best needles I've ever used, and they're the only needles I ever use now as Chalgoo. With these new ones, you're not going to be able to see that, but it actually is a swivel cable, which is very different to my original Chalgoos. So there is a wee little lip there where that spiral is. And at first I was aware of it. I thought, oh, I'm not used to that. But what I want to say is you actually get used to it very quickly, and it's almost like you change your technique a little bit for pushing your stitches through. And after only a couple of rows, I didn't even notice it. So I thought I would mention that if you've sort of used them and thought, I don't know if I like them. The other thing I wanted to tell you is these swivel cables you can buy on their own, and they interchange with your original Chalgoo, your original stainless steel. So if you want to try them, just buy the cable on its own. It's worth a try. But I really, really like them. And the only other thing I would say is all my Chalgoo interchangeables that I use are 4-inch, and these are 5-inch. And I didn't think that an inch would make a difference, but it actually does. They're quite a long needle for what I'm used to. So yeah, I've gone from 4-inch to 5-inch, but I'm really excited to get to use those. In case too you didn't know, so Chalgoo is owned, I actually can't remember if they're from Japan or China, but it's owned by two brothers, and one of them lives in Asia and one of them lives in America. And the brothers are, apparently they're very different. So one of the brothers is actually an engineer, and he's the one that's developed all these needles and the cables, and he's a real perfectionist, and he runs the factory and he designs all the needles for Chalgu. The other brother that lives in America, he takes care of all the sales and marketing. So just a little bit of background on Chalgu. But yeah, I'm a fan. They're always my go-to. So that's just my little review on the new 360 swivel, they're called. I'm following a bit of a list here. I'll talk to you about my WIPs. Some of them you've seen before, and I've got two new cast-ons, which are now WIPs. I'll quickly show you this one because I've shown it to you before, but I'll just give you a wee little progress. So this is my Dotted Rays by Stephen West. It's a crescent shaped shawl, and I highly recommend it. Once again, it's my second one. It's really good TV knitting, and I have made a little bit of progress. So I'm doing it in two colours, as you can see there. You can do it all in one colour, and you can also make it quite scrappy, where you can use lots and lots of different colours if you've got leftover yarns. I'm using a 4-ply yarn, and I'm doing it on a 4mm needle. And the two colours I'm using are Willowherb and Beetles Wings, and they're Devonia, which is yarn out of the UK. So they're the two colours I'm using. And I thought I would just quickly mention it again because although I haven't done a lot on it, it is a really nice project, TV knitting or travel knitting. So if you're wanting to cast on a new shawl, that's one that I recommend. Excuse me, I've just got to reach. My other WIP, and I haven't done any work on this one, but it's in my area of WIPs. It's a current WIP is what I should say. It's not one that's gone into the naughty corner. It is one that I'm still consciously wanting to work on, but it's the Ripple Bralette by Jesssie Maed, that one there. I have watched a few podcasts recently, and there's actually a lot of singlets and bralettes, that kind of tight fitting style that you can wear as an undergarment. There's actually quite a lot of them around, more than what I thought. So I am actually keen to get this one finished. It is my second one because I have got yarn for a third one, but I am going to pick a new pattern. So when I decide on my new pattern and I purchase it, I'll show you what I've decided on. But that's it's worked bottom up, and I don't do mine as a crop bralette. I do mine full length as a full length singlet. So I have still got quite a bit of work to do. But it is a current WIP that I do plan on working on. That's in one of my bucket bags. That's actually the small one, and it actually holds quite a lot. I'll talk about them more in my shop update. But here in my large bucket bag, I've got two new cast-ons. This one I'll show you because it's another pair of the DK Everyday Socks. So finished one, fell in love with it, needed to cast on a second pair. And I went through my stash of sock yarn, and I come across this, and this yarn was a gift. I got it for my birthday from a very close friend, and at the time I wasn't doing much sock knitting, so it went into my stash, And when I saw it, I was really disappointed with myself that I hadn't actually cast that on, because often if I get a yarn that's a gift, it's actually quite precious to me, and I really should have made more of a conscious effort to actually cast this on earlier. But this yarn is in my journal because it's new. It's in my 2023 journal as a new cast on. And it's Mrs. Peacock's Yarns, and I don't know much about this dyer, only that she is a New Zealand dyer, and I'm not even sure. I should have googled it, shouldn't I? But it's Mrs. Peacock's Yarn. It's a self-striping yarn, and I think it's 80/20. Yeah, it's 80/20 merino, 357 meters per 100 grams. It is so soft, like seriously butter soft. It's self-striping in this beautiful blue and yellow, and I'll show you in the sock. It actually reminds me of like a real almost like a sapphire blue. It's really quite a beautiful color. My daughter looked at them and told me that she thought they were Harry Potter colors. I'm not sure about that, because I've seen Harry Potter, but I'm not a big Harry Potter fan. But it also came with the gold as the contrast colour. So I've done the toe in the gold, and I'm going to do the heel and the cuffs in the contrasting gold. So I'm over halfway on the foot on my first sock. I use a 100 centimetre cable. I do magic loop, and I use a 2.5. So love it. Love the yarn, love the pattern. And my goal is to pick it up every day and do at least one stripe. So that was a new cast on. Last week, I think I cast that one on. And the second cast on, I did talk about in my last episode. Stephen West is doing the Year of Socks, and I signed up for it. You don't have to sign up for it. You can buy the patterns individually as they come out, but if you signed up, you got a free pattern, which was, I think it was called Painted Bricks, and then every month you get a new pattern. And I signed up for it because I'll end up with 13 patterns, so basically buy 12 get one free. So at the end of it, I will have 12 sock patterns, and I know that because they're Stephen West, they're going to be quite unique, and they're going to be quite colourful, and I know that I'm going to learn new techniques because it's Stephen West, and that's what happens. So the first one that came out was January, and it's called Cabled Trellis Socks. Now, I'm pretty sure you can buy this on its own now on Ravelry. And I cast these on. Love in the pattern. I probably would recommend putting in a lifeline, actually, because I did have to rip it back twice. So I cast it on, and I was happily knitting away. And then I thought the pattern of the sock, the actual leg of the sock, because of all the pattern work, it felt really quite dense. I used his recommended 2.25 mil needle, and I didn't like the feel of it. I really thought it was quite dense, and I thought it was going to be quite tight. So I actually pulled it back a third time. And I cast it on again using a 2.5, which is my comfortable size for socks for me, is a 2.5. So just something to keep in mind. There are quite a lot of sizes. His patterns are really size inclusive, and he talks about measuring your foot to get the exact size. And I'm sure the sizing is going to be fine. I just didn't like the denseness of the fabric. So I pulled it out, and actually I should have had about that much to show you, but I've only got that much. But you can get a wee little glimpse there of that cable in the trellis starting to happen. And the yarn I'm using is actually out of my stash, so I'm really happy about that. I didn't have to buy this yarn, but they're the two colours. And these colours are seriously out of my comfort zone. They're super, super bright. But like I said in my previous podcast, I just looked at them and I thought these are Stephen West. Like, just go for it. Just jump completely out of your comfort zone and do something completely out there and completely different. So that's what I've done. So my recommendation is, if you're a tight knitter, you might want to go up a needle size because the pattern makes it quite dense. And my other recommendation is to put in a lifeline, because there is quite a lot of intricate, is that the right word, or am I making that word up? Small cables, and you know, you sort of, if you lose your cable needle and you've got these 2 stitches floating around, they're really hard to pick back up. And also you do at certain points move stitches from your left needle over to your right needle, so there's quite a bit going on, so do consider a lifeline. So they're my current WIPs, really. My dotted ray shawl, my bralette, and my new pair of DK socks, and my Stephen West. But what I do have, they're WIPs, but I actually have a new cast on. So they're separate, right? I'm justifying all these works in progress. I'm going to show you my new cast on. Okay, wasn't really a wardrobe change, but I really had to take my my winter beach cardi off. I was getting quite warm. It's a beautiful yarn. I really highly recommend it. I think you should try it. The other thing, I can see myself as I'm recording, and you've probably noticed, but I'm really overdue for a haircut, and I haven't been to the hairdressers, and that's what happens over Christmas and New Year. And my fringe is way too long, and normally I just get the scissors and I deal to it myself, which often ends up as a disaster. But I actually thought I might try to grow it out, so it's kind of just there, and it's annoying me, to be honest. So let's see if I persevere. You'll know by my next podcast whether I've not persevered and I've gone to the hairdressers and I've had it all cut back in. But anyway, aside from my hair problems, I have talked about this pattern for quite a few months. It's been on my radar, and I did say I was going to cast it on, and I have. And it's another Andrea Mowry, and it's her Sprite. Now, I actually love everything about this. I love the fact that there's lacework yoke. I love the fact that it's a top-down yoke style sweater. I love the fact that there's bobbles. I actually love bobbles. And this corrugated rib I have not done before, so I was really keen to try that. So everything about this pattern appealed to me, and it's a piece that I know that I want in my wardrobe. So I picked my yarn, and the yarn I'm using is Yarnadelic, and this is a sports weight yarn, which the pattern calls for. And I've used this in another garment that from a few episodes ago that you've seen. What was it? The Cravat by Caitlin Hunter. And this is a beautiful soft yarn. It's such a beautiful yarn to wear. It's really soft to skin, close to skin type yarn. And the colours, my main colour that I'm using is called Ordinary Joe, which is an undyed base. It's just a real neutral. But my pop of colour is called Wondrous Place. And I love this colour. I would like to do a full garment in this colour, but at the moment I'm settling for it just to be my contrast colour. So they're the two yarns that I've chosen. But I want to tell you about my swatches, because I do always swatch for a new garment, and I want this garment to be perfect. Like I want it to wear well. So I want to get it right, is what I'm trying to say. So I swatched, and my first swatch was on the needle size that she recommended, which was a 5 US, which is a 3.75 mil. And there's my swatch, my first swatch. And I got 27 stitches per 4 inches. Her recommended gauge is 23, so I was quite a way off. So I swatched again and I went up a needle size. So I went from a 5 US to a 6 US, which is a 4 mil. And there's my swatch using a 4 mil needle. And I got 25 stitches, so I was still off. So I swatched again. Seriously, so many hours of knitting time wasted on swatches, but I wanted to get it right. So my third swatch is a 4.5 mil, which is a 7 US. And I got gauge, which is her 23 stitches per 4 inch. And it's really, because for me it's important that I love the fabric, and the interesting thing is I actually love the fabric on all 3 of them. That one is a lot more dense. That one is kind of probably perfect. And this one is a bit loose. But I'm going with this one, which is a little bit loose because that's the gauge that she recommends. So that was my swatching for this garment. And it is what it is, right? It's, you know, I probably could have gone with one of the others, but then I would have had to have adjusted my sizing, and I wasn't confident to do that. So for the main fabric, I'm using a 4.5 mil. She actually calls for a 3.75. And for my ribbing, I'm using a 3.5. I'm not sure what she calls for, but I'm doing the size 3. So that is a 40-inch bust, or 102 centimeters, with 1 to 2 inches of positive ease. So fingers crossed. So I've wound my cakes, and last night I sat up really quite late. I actually cast on. So there's not much to show you. I've literally just done the cast on, and I've done only 2 rows of that corrugated rib. But what I want to talk to you about is the cast on that she recommends is a 2x2 tubular cast on. She does say you can use whatever cast on you like, obviously, but I want this perfect. I want to get this right. So I thought, no, I've never done it. I don't think I've ever done a 2x2 tubular cast on. So I watched her tutorial, which is very good, and I will leave the link below if you want to go on and have a look. But 4 hours later, I was still struggling to get this cast on right. So, and then it occurred to me, what was wrong was the stitches were twisting on my cable, and because I'm not familiar with this stitch, I wasn't able to read the stitches, if that makes sense. Often when you know the stitch and you know what you're doing, you can read the stitch and you know whether it's twisted or it's the wrong way around. But I wasn't able to read these stitches, and they were twisting on the cable and it wasn't working. So I actually had to dig really, really deep into my stash boxes, but I actually did the cast on a straight needle. And that way I was able to keep all the stitches straight and they weren't twisting. So there's 2 setup rounds with a tubular cast on. So I did those 2 setup rounds using a straight needle, and then I transferred them onto the cable for the third row. So that is my recommendation. If you are not familiar with a tubular cast on, a 2x2 tubular cast on, my recommendation is to do your first 2 setup rounds on a straight needle. Lisa's tip for the day. And so after about 4 hours, and it was close to midnight before I went to bed last night, that's what I got done. It took me 4 hours to do that little bit, but I'm happy. I am really happy. I got it right. So that is my new cast on. way. That's my new cast on. I'm really excited for it, and it probably will be something that is my main focus over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully by my next podcast I've started on the yoke, and I've got some more to show you. Sprite. Now the next one, this isn't a cast on, but I have the pattern and I have the yarn, and I've done a swatch. So a friend of mine introduced me to this pattern a few weeks ago, and I think it may be a new pattern by Petite Knits, and I know I'm going to butcher this name because I am so bad with pronunciation, but it's Agnete cardigan. That's it there. And I have said a few times that I really need more cardigans in my wardrobe. I love them as transitional pieces. I also love them because I've started to get hot flushes again, and I need to be able to take things on and off very quickly. So I really do want some more cardigans. This particular pattern though is done mohair double-stranded, and I didn't want a mohair cardigan. Well, I do, but I looked at the pattern and I knew I had this yarn in my stash, and I really want to use some of my stash yarn this year. So this is a DK Merino, and this yarn was actually dyed for me. I told the dyer, this is about 2 years old, this yarn, and I'd said to her, I want a pink, I want a dusty type pink, and she actually dyed this up special for me. At the time, this yarn was new to her, and she just said, I love it, you'll love it, Lisa. So I said, but go for it, dye me some up. And this is the colour she came up with. And I really love it because it's not pink, it's not purple. It's just lovely. And it's a DK Merino, and I did my swatch. I did this over the weekend, and I wet blocked it. I wet blocked it at the same time that I had my Winter Beach Cardi blocking. So the recommended needle size is a 4.5, and the gauge in the pattern is 19 stitches per 4 inch. And guess what? First time I got gauge. So the gauge is perfect for this pattern. Now I'm meeting up with my friend later today, and I'm going to take this with me because I know that she must be very close to finishing hers, and I know that she's done the recommended yarn in the pattern, which is, I'm not sure, but I know it's double stranded with merino, with mohair. So I just really want to talk to her and get her expertise advice on whether this yarn would be suitable for the pattern, what she thinks. But the other thing about this pattern is I will be stepping out of my comfort zone again. This pattern calls for double knitting and brioche. And I've done very little brioche. I did a brioche course, and I learnt brioche, and I pretty well have never done brioche since. So I'm a little bit scared, but I thought I'm going to talk to my friend, and if she's happy to hold my hand through the process, I'm going to try to do this cardigan in the brioche as the pattern calls for. So it will be a wee bit of a challenge for me. I'm hoping that I just really get into the rhythm of that brioche and that double knitting, and it just flies off my needles because it's DK and it's a 4.5mm needle. That's what I'm hoping for. But it's a new challenge, and I like to challenge myself and learn new techniques. So that is sitting in this basket. Gauge done. Sorry, swatch done. Yarn wound into a cake. Needles, and I'm ready to go. So I'll keep you up to date on that progress, obviously, because I talk about my WIPs, and I do talk about failures. Not everything's a success, but I'm really hoping that that's going to be a success. And I need a drink of coffee. It's gone cold, which is okay because it's black coffee. I don't mind black coffee cold. I couldn't drink white coffee cold. My last podcast, I talked about sock knitting and how I think if you haven't learnt to knit socks, you really should, because it's really quite rewarding and they make amazing gifts. And one of my viewers came back and she recommended 2 sock knitting courses that you can do, or tutorials online. So I wanted to share them with you, and I'm going to leave the links below for both of these. And if you've been around for a while, you'll know of these. But one is the Crazy Sock Lady, and she's out of America. Actually, I think both of these ladies are out of America. Don't quote me on that. Crazy Sock Lady, and the other one, and I've watched her tutorials and she is amazing, but it's Earth Tone Girl sock, learn to knit sock tutorial. So both of those, if you have not knitted socks and you really want to try to knit socks, or you've tried to knit socks and it's been a disaster, jump back in and try again, and I'll leave the links to both those tutorials. See which one suits you, see which one that you like, and just go for it. The other thing I wanted to mention too, and this sort of is a bit of a segue into the yarn that new yarn that I've got in stock, but it's talking about this here. This is indie dyed yarn, and I've done quite a bit with indie dyed yarn, and I've got a couple of samples here that I want to show you of what I've done. But I want to say that I think it's really important when you knit with indie dye yarns is to alternate your skeins. And the reason for that is it's not commercial, it's indie dyed. There can be variations from skein to skein, and I have knitted indie dyed garments and I haven't alternated the skeins, and I've ended up with pooling of colour where you can actually see where I've gone from one skein to the next skein. So I really recommend that you just have 2 balls of yarn wound up at the same time and just carry the yarn up each row and alternate each row with another skein. Does that make sense? Alternate your skeins. Because it does happen, and it has happened to me, and I'm sure if you've knitted a lot with indie dyed yarn, you'll know what I'm talking about. So be mindful of that. Always alternate your skeins. Both of these things I want to show you I have worn on this podcast, so I won't go on about them, but what I wanted to do was show you the yarn. That's all my WIPs and everything. So this is a bit about yarn, so it's a bit of a shop update because it's new yarn that I've got in my shop, but I did want to talk about the yarn. So the first one, and this is one of my favorite colors ever, and it's called Dark Denim. Now you can see, I'll show you the pattern work. You can see the stitch definition on this yarn. Is it showing up? Yep. So this is a high twist merino. It's 100% New Zealand merino, and it's a high twist. Actually, there's one. There it is there in a skein. And I love this yarn. I highly recommend it. You can also use this yarn for socks. If you are a sock knitter that doesn't like using nylon, because of the high twist construction, it's really quite sturdy. But this yarn is so nice to wear. So it's merino, so it's super soft to the skin, but it doesn't fluff or pill like a lot of other merinos. And I know that that's not a big deal, right? Like all yarn pills, and we live with it and we deal with it. But this doesn't pill very much. So if you like a garment that doesn't fluff or pill much, I want to show this is the it's a 4-ply merino high twist, and I want to show you some of the colors I've got. So it's 100 gram is 400 meters, but the other one is the merino nylon sock yarn, which I've got in stock, and I have used this for garments. Now this is Miss Arena by Caitlin Hunter. I actually love this pattern. I'd love to do another one. But I did this in the 4-ply merino sock, which is 80/20. And once again, beautiful stitch definition with very little pilling. So that's... I want to cast on another one. I was like, put it away, Lisa, don't look at it. You can't afford to cast on anything more. So what I wanted to show you was, I've done some swatches, was just some of the colours that I've got in stock. So this is the High Twist Merino. This colour's called Midnight. It's not showing up. It's a really, really deep blue. This one is called New Rivers. And I just love it. This one's called Forest Birds. I've shown these on my social media, but I wanted to show you again because I just think they're stunning. And this one is called Midnight Sunset in the High Twist. So all of those yarns are suitable for those garments that I showed you, like a Merino or any 4-ply garment, but great stitch definition with very little pilling. And also behind me are the sock yarns, which you can also use in garment knitting. So I just wanted to share those with you because they're New Zealand Merino, and it's all milled and dyed here in Christchurch, and that really appeals to me because it's really, really local. I have forgotten something. I actually have there are some new patterns that have come my way that I want to share with you. And I've got this the wrong way around because the yarn I've just showed you is ideal for these patterns, but I'll show you the patterns. And once again, I hope I pronounce this correctly, but it's Amikihia Knits. And it's a Mowry word. And I can't remember now what it means. But anyway, the designer is Elizabeth, and she is also local, very local to the Canterbury area where I live here. And this, once again, it's a cardigan, and this is what I want in my wardrobe. But it's called Sky Watching. And she's actually used in this pattern, this dark denim. Now, this dark denim is on my website, but there's no stock. But there will be stock within about the next 2 days, so keep an eye out. So this is dark denim, which I showed you in my garment there. But this is the cardigan. So it's got a nice deep band, which I like. It's fitted through here, and then it's got lace work on the shoulder. And the rest is stockinette stitch. So it just really appeals to me. Sky Watching. So I'm going to leave the link below to that pattern. So if you're after just a real basic 4-ply or finger and weight cardigan everyday piece, I recommend Sky Watching. And the other one is called Mountains to Sea. And again, it's just a really pretty basic cardigan. It's got a little bit of lace work down that where the button band is. And that would be perfect if you wanted to do the same. If you love green, this colour green would be perfect for this. So I'm going to leave the links to those two cardigans, but I recommend that you jump onto Ravelry and look under Amikihia Knits, Elizabeth. All the links will be below because I am just really bad at pronouncing this word. But I'm going to leave the link below and go on and check, because she's got quite a lot of patterns, but they're two cardigans that are on my radar. Both of them are. And I want to use that High Twist Merino to do them in. So, yeah, 2 new patterns that I've shared with you. Okay. There was one other thing. Now, and I'm actually asking for your opinion. So if you have an opinion on what I'm about to talk about, leave me a message below. So once again, Andrea Mowry, she has done the Shifty sweater, and she's just recently launched the Shifty cardigan. But I want to do the Shifty sweater. I've got the pattern. It's been in my folder, like, I think since she launched it. But I was always, spin cycle is really expensive here in New Zealand. And when I calculated how much it was going to cost me to do it in spin cycle, it was going to be around 700 New Zealand dollars, which was like, whoa, it was like off my radar, crazy, crazy numbers. But I've managed to come by, this was sort of gifted, although I purchased it. It was sort of half gift, half purchase. I've got these 4 skeins of spin cycle. And I know I need a lot more to do the Shifty. And I thought, well, I've got to start here. Maybe I will purchase the rest of the yarn and actually do it. And it's still going to cost me a lot of money, but I really like it. So what I'm wondering, what I want to know is from you viewers that have done the Shifty, is it worth it? I've heard a lot of people say that gauge is a shocker, that it's really hard to get gauge, and I've heard a few people say that they've done it and then it didn't fit and they had to unravel it and then keep, you know, like trying it on, taking it off, unraveling it and doing it again in another size, and so on and so on. So I've heard some pretty disastrous stories about the gauge and the fit. And I really want to do it, but it's going to cost me quite a lot of money. But I figure I'm already like quarter of the way there. So, yeah, what do you think? Have you done it? And if so, do you love it? Is it worth it? Or would you say, no, don't. Use your spin cycle for something else? That was one of my questions that I wanted to put to you. I want to reach it. Exmoor sock yarn. I did my Cumulus Tea in this one, so you've heard me talk about it before. This yarn has 10% nylon. I won't go on about it. It's on my online store if you want to jump on and have a look at it. It's got a really beautiful colour range. I think there's about 16 colours. But there's 4 new colours, and I've ordered them, and they should be on their way to me soon. But they're coming from the UK, so that still could be weeks. Could be a month away. But if you're a fan of this yarn or you've used it, the 4 new colours, there's a pink and a blue and a red and like an olive green. So keep an eye out. Of course, I'm going to show them to you when they arrive. But I just wanted to mention that I have ordered those 4 new colours. I showed you before my leather bucket bags, which have been made specially for me, and they actually have my logo on them. Pockets on the outsides, and the same pockets are on the inside. It's fully lined with pockets. And these hold quite a lot. Like, this is the large bucket bag, and this would hold a full garment large project. The small bucket bag is what I use for my sock projects and my smaller projects. And it's exactly the same, it's just a wee bit smaller. It's got all the pockets and all the inside pockets. I've got them on my website at 15% off till the end of January. So if you're watching this on Tuesday the 25th, you've got 6 days. So yeah, 15% off my bucket bags. And also, I just wanted a reminder, because I've been doing quite a bit of gardening and I've been using this a lot. And I thought, oh, I really should talk about it. But I have my own brand of Knitter's Balm. That's what it looks like. And it's dandelion infused sunflower oil and beeswax. And what I love about this is I can rub it on, massage it into my cuticles, and straight away pick up my wool and start knitting. It doesn't affect the yarn. So my knitter's balm, just a reminder that that's on my website, and also my knitter's cords, which you've seen. These have been around for a while now, and I wouldn't be without them. These are the best tool to have in your knitting bag. But the knitter's cords are for putting your stitches on hold, and they're really good for when you're putting like the sleeves on hold, when you're doing a top-down construction. You divide for the sleeves. These are perfect for holding your stitches, and also for the body when you're trying it on as you go. Really quick and easy. Just slide your stitches onto it, and then slide your stitches back onto your needle really quickly. They're $15 at the moment. So that was my little shop update. It was quite a big shop update, really. And I'm just looking around me because I think I've covered everything. And I'm saying now, so thinking. It's been really nice to bring this episode to you, because I was really excited about my completed Winter Beach Cardi, but I'm also really excited about my new cast-ons, and I'm also really excited about having my sock mojo back. So I really hope to have made progress on the Stephen West cabled trellis socks. Like I said, he's going to be bringing out a pattern each month, and I think it's about the 10th of each month. And I know that I'm not going to get a pair a month done. Like, no way. I'll probably be lucky to get 4 done in a year. But I think it's going to be a really fun journey and really exciting just to get those new patterns pop into my inbox every month. So, yeah, if you haven't signed up, I think you still can sign up. But if not, once the patterns come out, they're available on Ravelry. I've covered everything. So once again, I want to thank you all for sharing this time with me. I know there are a lot of podcasts out there, so thank you for choosing me. You please follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and if you like, join our community group. You will get asked 3 questions, and a moderator will approve that membership. It's not a membership, but you get approved anyway. And yeah, Instagram, Facebook, all my show notes, if there's anything that you want to refer to, anything I've discussed will be in my show notes. If you haven't already, could you please subscribe to my channel? And all that does is notify you when a new episode goes live. Thumbs up is really good and greatly appreciated. And yeah, if you like the podcast and you like the content, tell your friends about it. At the moment, we're at about 1,800 subscribers. So I'd really like to see that 2,000 number. That would be really good. So I'll just keep plodding along here, and let's see if I can get my channel to grow into the next phase. But thank you, everyone, for joining me. Yeah, I like to podcast about every 2 weeks unless something happens. Life gets in the way. But thank you, everybody. Please subscribe, and I will see you again in about 2 weeks. Okay, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you then. Bye. Hi. Since filming the podcast and before putting it on air, I met with my friend who I said was going to help me with this pattern, which is the Agnete cardigan by Petite Knits. And I mentioned that it was done in what I thought was half fisherman ribbon brioche, which is why I wanted my friend to help me, because I'm not really confident with brioche. But I've just met and had coffee with her, and I took my swatch, and I quite proudly told her that I'd got gauge with my swatch, and she informed me that my swatch had to be done in brioche. So I thought I'd come back and do a quick correction before anyone picked up on that. So my swatch, which I got 19 stitches, I have to redo in brioche, and the whole pattern is brioche. There's actually no fisherman rib in it at all. So I thought I would just make that wee correction. But also, she is maybe about a third of the way on the body, and it looks amazing. And she has also done hers in a DK, I think it's a merino cotton blend. So she's also chose not to do the 4-ply held double with mohair, which is also what my choice is. No mohair for this one. So I'm just going to put this little bit of video in, just explaining that I got a little bit too anxious there and got it wrong. So, which is not unusual for me. I sort of like to jump the gun a bit and get a bit excited and go ahead without actually reading. If I'd read the pattern properly, I would have seen that line that says swatch in brioche. But anyway, so I am going to re-swatch in brioche, and fingers crossed that I can still get gauge and cast on that lovely cardigan. That's it there. Okay, I hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.